Imagine climbing to the top of a volcano over 22,000 feet high. What would you expect to find? Rocks, snow, an incredible view. How about the perfectly preserved body of a 500-year-old girl? That's exactly what archaeologists discovered in 1999 on the summit of Mount Llullaillaco in Argentina. They named her the Llullaillaco Maiden. She wasn't alone. 2 other younger children were found with her, all frozen in time. For centuries, she sat there, undisturbed. Her skin, her organs, even the food in her stomach were all intact, making her one of the best preserved mummies ever found. She looked so peaceful, as if she had just fallen asleep. But how did she get there, and why? This wasn't an accident. The discovery sparked a massive investigation to unravel the mystery of her final days. Scientists used advanced technology, like CT scans and DNA analysis, to piece together her story. What they found was astonishing. The maiden was a chosen one, selected for a special Inca ritual called kapik. This was considered a great honor. For the last year of her life, her diet changed dramatically. Analysis of her hair showed she started eating elite foods like maize and dried llama meat, things usually reserved for the nobility. This suggests she was treated with great care and respect on her final journey. As the day of the ceremony approached, she was given coca leaves to chew and an alcoholic drink called chicha to help her fall into a deep sleep. Then, dressed in her finest clothes and surrounded by beautiful offerings like gold statues and elaborate pottery, she was placed in a small chamber dug into the frozen ground. The freezing temperatures and low oxygen at that altitude preserved her perfectly. She wasn't sacrificed violently. She simply fell asleep and never woke up, becoming a messenger to the gods in the Inca belief system. The Llullaillaco Maiden gives us an incredible, personal window into a lost world. She tells a story not of fear, but of faith, honor, and a culture that saw death as a transition, not an end. It is a haunting and fascinating glimpse into the past that continues to teach us about the complex lives of the Inca people. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories from history. The volcano wasn't random in Inca belief. Mountains were alive. They controlled rain. They controlled crops. They controlled fertility. They were sacred beings, and Mount Llullaillaco, towering above all others, was one of the most powerful. If you wanted to speak to the gods, you climbed higher, closer to the sun, closer to the heavens. But you didn't go empty-handed. You brought an offering. And sometimes the offering was human. Among the Inca, there existed a sacred group known as the Chosen Women, often called Virgins of the Sun. Young girls selected for their beauty, their purity, their presence. Some were taken as young as 6. They were removed from their families and brought to Cusco. There, inside sacred compounds, they lived in isolation. No windows. No contact with ordinary life. They prepared ritual offerings. They brewed ceremonial chicha beer. They served the sun god. And in rare cases, the most perfect among them were selected for something greater, something irreversible. The maiden's tomb revealed a stunning headdress, feathered, preserved, untouched. To understand her death, you have to understand the world that shaped it. The Inca Empire was vast, stretching over 2,500 miles across mountains, deserts, and jungles. It rivaled the greatest civilizations on Earth at the time, and yet it had no written language, no wheels for transport, no iron weapons. What it did have was absolute belief. The emperor wasn't just a ruler. He was considered a divine son of the sun. When crops failed, when drought struck, when earthquakes shook the Andes, it wasn't random. It was the gods demanding balance, and balance required offerings. The ritual known as Coca was the highest form of sacrifice, reserved for major events like the death of an emperor or natural disasters. The chosen children were not seen as victims. They were elevated, purified, and treated as sacred. Their families often felt pride, not grief, because in Inca belief, the child did not die. She transformed. She became an eternal intermediary between humans and gods, placed on sacred peaks close to the heavens. From that altitude, she would watch over the empire and protect it. This wasn't cruelty in their eyes. It was cosmic duty. But even in ritual, there are moments of humanity. One detail still unsettles researchers. Signs of stress. Her teeth show unusual wear, not from age, but from grinding. She was a healthy, 14-year-old girl, strong enough to walk over 1,000 miles and climb into the death zone. But she did not choose this. Did she know her journey had no return? Some anthropologists believe the increasing alcohol and coca consumption in her final months was a gradual, psychological preparation, a sedation of reality. Her final resting position is not chaotic. She is seated carefully, head bowed slightly. It looks like acceptance. Her braids were woven tightly just hours before death, a final act of care. Then, the empire vanished. Within decades, Spanish conquistadors arrived, and the Inca world collapsed. But high on that mountain, untouched by conquest, she remained. Frozen. Perfect. Waiting. 500 years passed. When modern scientists found her, they weren't just examining a mummy. They were examining the best-preserved human body ever discovered from the ancient world. Her skin still contains moisture. Her internal organs are intact. The freezing conditions created a time capsule. But this preservation also humanizes her. When visitors see her in the museum, they don't see ancient bones. They see a girl. And that blurs the line between past and present, raising a difficult question. Is it right to display her? Some argue she is sacred and should be returned to the mountain. Others believe that studying her teaches us about a history that has no written record. She is the evidence. As science advances, new technologies may reveal even more about her life and her world. The debate continues. Is she a scientific treasure or a sacred ancestor? Perhaps she is both. Thank you for watching. Before her discovery in 1999, much of what we knew about Inca sacrifice came from Spanish conquerors, and those accounts were biased. They described brutality, savage rituals, barbaric offerings, but conquerors often exaggerate the cruelty of those they defeat. It justifies conquest. The maiden changed that narrative because she didn't look tortured. She didn't look mutilated. She looked cared for. Her clothing was exquisite. Her braids were precise. Her body carefully arranged. Even the artifacts in her tomb were positioned with intention. There was dignity in the ritual. That doesn't make it less tragic, but it makes it more complex. Scientific evidence showed that in her final year, she was treated better, not worse. Her diet improved. She consumed elite foods. Her coca and alcohol intake suggests ceremonial participation. This wasn't abandonment. It was elevation. Anthropologists began rethinking the Coca ritual. Maybe it wasn't an act of cruelty. Maybe it was a deeply spiritual exchange, a negotiation between humans and nature. The Inca believed mountains were living deities. If the gods controlled rain and fertility, then appeasing them meant survival, and survival meant sacrifice. For a civilization without modern medicine or weather forecasting, belief was their science. Offering a child, pure, unblemished, noble, was the ultimate gesture of devotion. The maiden's preservation also shattered assumptions about ancient mummification. The Inca didn't embalm her. They didn't chemically preserve her. Nature did, which means the ritual depended on geography. They chose a mountain high enough to freeze her instantly. They knew the summit would protect her forever, and they were right. Because 5 centuries later, we are still studying her, still learning from her, still asking questions. In part 14, we step back and confront the emotional weight of her story, beyond science. Beyond ritual, at some point, all the science fades, all the empire fades, all the ritual fades, and what remains is a girl. Frozen in a moment, her head slightly bowed, her lips gently parted, her hands resting in stillness. She does not look like a symbol. She does not look like an offering. She looks human. And that is what unsettles people most, because when visitors stand before her, they don't see the 1400s. They see a daughter, a sister, a child, Time collapses inside that glass chamber. 500 years no longer feel distant. They feel immediate. The mountain that once made her divine now makes her vulnerable. She did not grow old. She did not see the fall of her empire. She did not know that within decades of her death, Spanish ships would arrive. Gold would be stripped from temples. Her world would disappear. She became immortal in the way the Inca intended, but not in the way they imagined. Not as a spirit watching over crops, not as a goddess protecting the empire, but as a silent witness to history. Her preservation forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. Civilizations justify sacrifice in the name of survival. Belief can sanctify death. Honor can coexist with tragedy. Was she afraid? Did she accept it? Did she feel pride? We will never know. What we do know is this. Her culture believed she was ascending. We see her as descending, and somewhere between those two perspectives lies the truth. In part 15, we close her story. 500 years ago, a 14-year-old girl climbed into the sky. Step by step, breath by breath, toward a summit where the world thins and silence becomes absolute. She carried no weapon. She carried no resistance. Only ritual. Only belief. Only destiny chosen for her. At sunrise, on a frozen volcano, her life ended, but her story did not. The Inca believed she would live forever. They believed the mountain would preserve her. They believed the gods would receive her. And in a way, they were right. She did not decay. She did not disappear. She did not become dust in forgotten soil. She remained perfectly frozen, waiting. Centuries later, when explorers reached that peak, they didn't find bones. They found a girl who looked asleep. And today, inside a glass chamber in Argentina, she still sits there, unaged, unbroken, unforgotten. Science calls her a mummy. Anthropology calls her a cup of cocoa offering. Tourists call her the Maiden. But perhaps the most powerful truth is this. She is proof that belief can shape history, that ritual can freeze a moment in time, that a single life, even one taken too soon, can echo across 5 centuries. Empires fall, languages vanish, gold melts, but high above the clouds, she remains eternal.